So we have so far talked about what is coloniality. So in order to understand the coloniality, we need to get some understanding about the modernity and how modernity started. This is a paradigm shift from the Dark Age, and whose first period was Renaissance. Then through Enlightened period, it reaches to the modern time. So first reaction in the West against that modernity was modernism. It appeared in the art, in the painting, in the literature, and this was the reaction against this whole dependence and whole focus on the reason and the consciousness. So first time in the West, the revolt came from the domain of the art and literature. So it means there is a difference between modernity and modernism. So modernism is a revolt against the modernity. Modernity centered around human understanding and human reason, and they seek solution of all problems through human reason. So that was the reaction came in the form of modernism. So there are three important texts to understand this movement of modernism. There are Nietzsche's Birth of Tragedy. It is very primary text. The Birth of Tragedy by Friedrich Nietzsche. And the second important is the Manifesto of Dada movement, Dadaism. And third is the Surrealism. The Manifesto of the Surrealist movement is very important and very important text of reaction against modernity, or the text of modernism. And another fourth important text is existentialism, the existential text of Sartre and Albert Camus. This is also the fourth important text of modernism. So if you want to understand the modernism and how modernism is different than the modernity, which was started 5,000 years ago in the form of Renaissance. Modernity's sole focus was on human reason, rationality, and scientific understanding. And science is totally dependent on human reason and understanding and empirical evidence. So modernism reacted, and their focus was on the unconscious of the human mind. Reason resides in the conscious part of the human mind, but they focus on the unconscious part of the human mind. So here, Friedrich Nietzsche and Sigmund Freud, these two are very important modernist, are all the modernist reactions are based on the theories of Friedrich Nietzsche and Sigmund Freud. So Dadaism focused on the chaotic, the terror, and the war-prone side of humanity, the violence inside us, the repulsion, the negative sides of human mind and instincts. They focused on that part. As Nietzsche, in The Birth of the Tragedy, introduced the two currents through the symbolic representation of Dionysus and Apollo. So Apollonian and Dionysian, two elements runs in our mind. So Apollo represents the reason and rationality and the order of human language and thought, and Dionysus represents the human instincts, the illogical, irrational part of our mind. And Nietzsche also warns the West that their sole focus on the human reason, they are building the civilization on the basis of the human reason, and there are chances some single person can rise and become the threat of this edifice of Western civilization based on reason. And this exactly happened when Hitler, Mussolini, and Stalin emerge as a threat to the whole of the West and the whole of the world. As Dada focused on the chaotic, the repulsive, instinctual side of human mind, the surrealist focus on the player side, the ecstasy, the extreme enjoyment, the love and the fantasy and the playerful feelings. They focused on unconscious desires, of player-seeking desires. the player principle. And the existential understanding is the understanding of the human condition, in which the modernity brought the human at that condition, which is absurd, divide, which seems sometimes meaningless, pointless existence, which we experience in the Waiting for the Godot, for example. We see the characters are standing on a road divide of greenery, and just a single bare tree is there, and their condition is very pathetic, and they have no purpose in their life, no ideas, no grand narrative. So this is the condition humans sometimes find because of this over dependence on rationality. So overall, the modernism in the art and the literature gives the idea that sole dependence of the human reason is the incomplete understanding of the human mind. As Nietzsche says, there are other side, the darker side, which has been neglected by the modernity and the modern man, and it could end in a disaster. So this was the difference between modernity, and the brighter side of modernity occurred in the West in the form of the reason, rationality, and science and technology, and their reaction came in the form of the modernism in the art and literature, and whose darker side and other texts which are written are the colonized. So because of that modernity, the world was divided ultimately into colonizer and the colonized world. So these are two separate worlds. One is the brighter side of modernity, and one is the phenomenon of the darker side of the modernity. So Walter Mignolo, Aníbal Quijano realizes this and theorizes. Walter Mignolo and Aníbal Quijano both theorizes this into the form of coloniality, and whose framework is called Colonial Matrix of Power, having 4 different axes, and whose center is its philosophy, its facade philosophy, and its patriarchal structures and the system of oppressions. Walter Mignolo says after the formal end of colonization, it doesn't mean the colonial matrix of power, this larger system, the invisible machine which is controlling this whole of the world, and whose purpose is to defend the Western economical interests and to strengthen their power, to maintain, hold their hold on the power. This matrix still exists. So as Edward Said says, after the end of the former colonialism, the world entered into a new colonialism. Now the center of the new colonialism is USA. And in the leadership of the USA, the West still employing the colonial matrix of power, and through that colonial matrix of the power, through economic control, through control of epistemology, through control of objectivity and ontology. So all these controls, they control politics, economics, and epistemology and all other things through that matrix to all the newly independent countries. So there a lot of countries, many countries got independence politically, but in real sense, the world entered into a new form of colonialism, which is the neo-colonialism. Now America or the USA-based colonialism is using imperialism. So there is a difference between imperialism and the colonialism. In its older form, colonialism, the British and other Western powers physically occupied the land, territory, and the people and exploited physically. But in this new form of colonialism, which is also imperialism, so remaining at the distance, controlling the distant lands through politics. Hello friends, culture, I am your host, Professor M. And today we are going to discuss a very important topic, which is how can we enhance our memory? How can we remember the things that we want to remember? Dear friends, remember we humans have 2 types of memory, long-term memory and short-term memory. In our daily routine, we do various things and we read the things, I know it was a very confusing, very difficult topic to understand. And if there are few things and few activities and few visualizations and few read material and few auditory important material we want to retain inside our head for the future reference. If you are a student and you are reading a book and you are going to participate in an exam, then you want to remember all the material written in the book for the sake of examination. So I think there are 3 methods to remember the thing we read or remember the thing we do or remember the thing we hear. There are 3 methods, 3 ways. First one is the very old